So here's a bit of a video of me fixing a Sony Betamax SL-2400. Pretty dark, but there we go. It's a pretty sweet little unit. It's pretty flat, but there's a lot of people talk online about it having a junk mechanism, as some people say. I mean, you know, it's weak, especially after all this time, but you know, it could be made to go again. So the problem I had with this one was you would stick a tape in and it would jam about there. Well, it wouldn't jam, it would just sit there and it would do nothing. Absolutely nothing. There was no clicking, no whirring, like nothing made any sense at all. When I opened it up, I was expecting to be able to sort of, you know, click something to see if, you know, there was something was supposed to engage. I was expecting like a belt for a motor, you know, to be off, something like that. It turned out to be a lot more nefarious than that. These two switches here are inside the mechanism, which you can't see, like stuffed in down the side there. That gets all of its power from this toothed belt from here, and the motor is underneath there. Now this is spinning a worm gear which goes vertically down, which then drives everything else that then sucks the tape in. Because I was getting nothing, you know, first of all, looking at other models, there was supposed to be some of the other models have like a motor in here that's self-contained, but this one transfers it from the same motor that wraps the film around the drum. The film, sorry, the tape. So anyway, having looked at this, I thought, okay, what's going on? And this, basically, when it went in, every now and then I could just see it sort of go, like, beep, 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 you know, like really small movements. And as I was sort of like, you know, wiggling it with my finger, I could sort of trick it into doing a little bit more. And I could see, you know, if you look down in there, there's there's two smaller gears underneath there. I was like, oh, it's pretty complicated. So anyway, set about removing this belt. There was a little clip over here that sort of retains it, but you can just pop that off, and then by pulling the belt up off of that, I could then watch the action of you know, the motor trying to work. Anyway, after popping off the little this little weird, it's not rubber, it's not metal either, but you can get that circlip, that ring clip off, and then pulling all this out, cleaning it all out, cleaning all the gears out, I could make it run again. The thing was once it was all hooked back up, it was just seized. This thing just wouldn't move, and I was, you know, trying to move it with my hand, and it was still seized. So it was obvious that the eject mechanism was just not going anywhere. So after you know, removing this top plate here, you can then get to the mech underneath. But what it basically, I'm not going to strip it down again to show you, but there's a large gear right there at the bottom, and so when the rotary motion comes in through here, through the gears, and it knows the position of the carriage here, when that's rotating down there, there's a shaft that goes all the way across to the other side, which runs just a few small gears on this side, which allows the tape to go in parallel. Okay. Now the problem was the shaft for that gear completely and absolutely seized into the housing on this side. The grease had sort of gone crystalline, and it was just rock solid. In order to get this whole mech out, you have to take off the top metal part, and then there's 3 screws, 1, 2, and there's another one centrally right under there. In fact, probably just by removing that one, and then that one, and then that one, and that one, you could probably lift the whole thing out. But I already had that off to watch the motion of the tape going in. Once I stripped down all the sides, pulling this apart, I mean it's kind of sprung because it has the entry flaps as well attached to it. Once I was able to pull it all apart, I had to tap the shaft out of this side here, and then the tapping wasn't going very well, and I was worried I was going to break some plastic, so I ended up just getting a pair of pliers on it and just twisting and twisting and twisting very slowly until I could get more movement, and then I could actually, you know, withdraw it from the hole. And then it was a case of cleaning it all up, putting it all back together. Unfortunately, that large gear there just pushes on, and the one on the opposite side as well just pushes on as well. So it was easy to get, you know, off in the end with the gears. Putting it all back together again, you must make sure that the inner carriage here has a whole separate, you know, there's two more guides, and it has to go with these arms that sort of snap and grab the tape. It's a bit tricky. Anyway, once it was back in, it could then be advanced just by turning the wheel, and you could watch the motion, you know, grab the tape and pull it in. But the machine still didn't really know where it was, so it took a couple of tries of, you know, trying to get this to pull it itself. And when it did, it like barely worked. And it seemed, and I thought, is there too much tension on the belt? Is there something wrong with that? And it's very loose anyway, very, very loose. And this is a tensioner arm here, but it seems that tensioning it up just made it worse. So I put it back to where it was when I got it. But then what I noticed was, what was tending to happen was this arm here it runs off a solenoid. There's a solenoid that's going to go ka-chunk, and when the arm's in that position, the eject mechanism is free to run. But when it's in that position, this is the tape load mechanism. And so what was happening was, or seemed to be anyway, was this was putting pressure onto this wheel here. And so that slight push on the, you see how sort of loosey-goosey it is anyway, but that slight pressure on the shaft there just meant this thing just couldn't kick up and start running. So looking at how this was all attached, that is a fixed point there, but this one here is an adjustable. So I slackened that off, and which way did I do it? So it was already fully in the left direction, and so as I just undid that screw and then just slightly moved the mechanism over slightly, and that seemed to have magically helped with the tensioning on here, and now this thing just runs, it just spins up, you know, nice and fast. So anyway, that's about it for how I was able to solve that. I went through, and you know, there's going to be people complaining that I used a bit of lubricating oil. I have like a, you know, just a synthetic lubricant, but the applicator is amazing, and you can just get it into tiny little places. Just a little bit of oil. You can't put too much on because it just throws it off everywhere when the things spin off. Especially in a mechanism like this, you do not want oil everywhere. So anyway, just a little bit of that on some of the runners just to help the mechanism run a bit better. But here's a demo. Here's my snowy storm picture. And let's see. So the power's actually on. And there you go. That's in the ready to play position. And then we get ready to press play. I don't have audio with this, but this tape is marked the Indianapolis 500 1987. You know, and I've yet to look into some of the finer details about potential colour issues or other things going on. I mean, there is, you know, the bottom scan lines here tend to V out, but I'll look at that another time. Overall, though, the image is pretty good. My camera's having a hard time keeping up. But there we go. So that's it running. I hit stop. Okay, and then if I hit the eject button, watch that changeover. There we go. All done.